Hello and welcome to Property Mastermind Podcast, episode 247. Today we are talking due diligence red flags that kill property development deals. We are going to unpack a lot of things that you need to be reminded of or made aware of so you don't fall into the trap of buying something that you shouldn't have bought. Let's jump on into episode 247. Hello and welcome to episode 247. We're talking due diligence red flags that kill property development deals. Before we kick off, the book winner this week, Larry Rose. Welcome to the Property Mastermind community. The book will be in the post to you. Someone will reach out to you in the next day or so. And remember the old story, go to page 121. Let's talk about property development right there. Okay, so due diligence red flags that kill property development deals. That's what we're on about today. But before we get started, welcome, Bob.
Welcome to me.
You know what's funny? I had to do 3 takes on the start. It was such a tongue-tied to do because I don't know if you listen to our podcast. It always starts off, hello, and welcome to Property Mastermind Podcast. And I just cooked it 3 times.
You got your tongue all wrapped around something to do with due diligence, but there was a bit of other stuff in there.
Try say due diligence red flags that kill property development deals. It's reasonably challenging. Yeah, my tongue was just not handling it so much. So I had to go, start again. We should do a bloopers roll because I pretty much do a double start on most podcasts. I don't know why. Anyway, Bob, as per usual, you've sat down. I've decided what the content's going to be based on a bit of feedback from our community, and you said, what's this about? And I said, don't worry, you know the answers to everything. I'll just ask you some questions and then we'll have a chat about DD. But before we kick into it, and the favourite part, the part you love the most, what's your tip?
Based on something that just happened about 20 minutes ago, we could hear the rain suddenly belting down here at the office on the roof. And it was a bit alarming because when I left this morning, even though there was a little bit of rain predicted, I didn't shut the windows or the doors. Window into our main bedroom could be a little bit damp.
Bob, I saved the day. I saved the day.
Did you? What happened? Because I got caught on another call.
Yes, the cleaner was there. So I rang her and said, well, it was her first day. So I was like, are you still there? She said, yes. I said, perfect. Could you please shut the doors and windows?
Oh, I love that. I'm going to give her a tip.
Yeah.
Well, not this sort of tip. Maybe.
Maybe a financial bonus.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe. Save the day. Don't have to dry the carpets. That'd be good.
Well, Bob, today, speaking of saving the day, I think this podcast, and we often talk about due diligence. I mean, we talk about lots of topics and it might sound or look like we're talking about a topic again, but we always cover off on different things because there's so much to talk about when it comes to property development. And today we're going to cover off on, the red flags. And this is like our cleaner being able to shut the door and save the day. When you pick up those red flags, you can save the day for yourself. So I really want to ask initially, what's the quickest deal you've ever killed with a DD? I'm not talking about the due diligence. I'm not going to cover the numbers and the feasibility, but the quickest deal you went, that is not a deal, and it was around due diligence, not numbers.
Yeah, a site that flooded. I had a look at a site with an agent one time. It's about an 800-metre site. Zoning was right, size is right, great suburb, everything looked good. And I went and had a look at it, and it was in an area that I know did flood sometimes. It had some low parts, some not so low parts. And I thought, well, that would be the first thing I'll check. So as soon as I got back to the office, I jumped onto the council website because you can see that on the council website. I had a look, bingo, goes 1.8 metres under. Well, you can't develop that site.
Bingo.
You can't fill it, you can't do anything.
So, Bob, had you gone ahead and bought that site as a development site, what would have happened?
Well, I wouldn't have been able to develop it. So that situation, they had an old house on it, which didn't worry me because I was going to demolish the house and build 4 townhouses. But had I bought it, I would have been stuck with the house that was on it. And guess what? It was full of white ants, so it wasn't really any good. I think somebody might have bought that site. When I went back and I found out it flooded, I rang the agent and I said, hey, that site you showed me, it floods. And she said, Oh, well, that's not my problem.
Oh, bless her.
Guess what?
What?
I think it became someone else's problem because I saw that sign, there's a big agent sign. I saw a sold sign on that not long after that. I thought, gee, I hope they bought that subject to due diligence and do all the normal checks. And anyway, that site, I think the house fell over not all that much longer with white ants. And that there's about 6 houses in a row there, and the council ended up buying them and turning them into a park.
So, Bob, like that due diligence, that was your quickest, you just straight away knew, asked the right question, and then found out that wasn't a problem. Had a wood duck bought it, well, as they may have by the sound of it, a wood duck being someone who has no idea what they're up to. So had a wood duck bought it, at what point would they have realised that that was a flooding site? Who would have picked up, who would have been the first consultant that said, hey, buddy, wood duck, you can't do it?
Yeah, well, let's say they just bought it even as an investment, and it wouldn't have been a very good one. But
No, let's stay with they bought it as a development.
bought it as a development site. Well, if they did that, would they have? Well, you know, when would they look at it? Would they settle and then look at it, or would they have it under contract? But they might have it under an unconditional contract. So it's one of the first things you do. It's a search. It's just one of the things you do.
Yeah, but I know that, and like we know that. But if somebody didn't,
if they're that stupid, I don't know when they would have found out.
So they would have built on it anyway.
If they'd have gone, well, let's say they were really crazy, and they went to the point of getting some plans drawn up at an architect, and we ended up lodging a development application. If they went that far, heaven forbid, but it is possible, and I'm sure people have done it, that the council would have picked it up immediately, because the council obviously knows, because that flooding map came from the council website, so they know it floods. And when you lodge an application, they would have thought, hey, hang on, this thing floods. They probably would have asked them to do a flood assessment report and go and spend $3 or $4 grand for nothing. But or they might have just said, look, don't even bother. Here's your application back. See you later. Who knows? But it would have gotten found out.
Yeah, so that was my question, because for you listening, you might think, what if you did miss a due diligence piece, and at what point it gets found out, and then what happens? So you've just said that that particular parcel of land and the 6 beside it have now turned into council parkland, and that's likely to be due to the flooding.
Yeah.
So they would have just sold back to council?
Well, at the time, some people might say, well, forget doing the 4 townhouses. What about we just push that old white ant infested house over and just build another house? But at the time, they wouldn't even let you do that, because you couldn't build a new building in a flooded area. So if you pushed it over, you end up with a vacant lot. What do you do with a vacant lot you can't build on? I don't know. Can you put a goat on it? I'm not sure what you do.
Put a goat on it. Well, there you go. Maybe how many goats can you put on a piece of land in a city?
How many goats can live on 809 square metres?
I don't know. That's a great question, Bob. Yeah, there you go.
Well, if it's just ordinary grass, you can put a horse on an acre, but I don't know about a goat.
So for you had an inkling that particular site was, or that particular area was potentially subject to flooding. What about if you didn't have that knowledge? You gone into a new area and you didn't have that knowledge? What would have been the red flag for a new developer? What would be their red flag for that?
Well, a new developer should at least learn how to do their due diligence. Now, there's no obvious red flag for flooding other than the fact that particular site was in Brisbane. The Brisbane River does flood. I lived there for many, many years, and I knew the areas that flooded, and that was one of them. And so I automatically knew. But if somebody just flew in that afternoon from Perth and decided to buy a site in an area they didn't know, they could have. If they just looked at the basics, zoning, size, frontage, the zoning was right, the size was right, the frontage was right, it was a level block, it was in a good area. Everything said, buy this site if the price is right. And the price was okay too, from memory. That's why I chased it up. But you've also got to do your own due diligence before you go unconditional on a contract. I did it before I even got near a contract. I didn't want to go to all the trouble of signing a contract subject to due diligence and paying a deposit. I was doing my due diligence immediately.
Yeah, so I think basically you answered the question. The answer to that question is you just have to do due diligence on every site, whether or not you know that it's subject to flooding or subject to anything else. But what's the red flag? Because sometimes there's a red flag and it could be, it's a red flag. Actually, it turns slightly pink. Oh, it's gone white. We can move past it. There are the odd red flags that don't turn out to be the ugly monster. Which red flags can turn out to be okay? You think they're red and it turns out they're not.
Well, getting a service connection is really important. So let's say we're going to let's keep it simple. Go back to the old duplex again, or it could be some townhouses, whatever it is. So we have to get a stormwater connection and we have to get a sewer connection. We have to get water connection, but that's always pressurised. So my quick look is, if you've got a site, you're looking at a site that slopes downwards from the road. In other words, the front boundary is the highest part of the block, slopes down. I immediately think, well, can I get a connection to the stormwater and the sewage? Because those two pipes, they fall under gravity, and so they don't flow uphill. They can only flow downhill to say a sewer pipe or a stormwater pipe. If the block sloped up from the road, 99% chance that we can just get a fall back to the footpath somewhere around there, either that side of the road or the other side of the road. There's going to be pipes to discharge into. So the first red flag is, this block slopes down from the road. Can I get a service connection? And so that's a red flag until I make it pink or white. And
do you like my pink or white system?
I'm not sure what pink is in the middle.
Yeah, it's in the middle. It's like, oh, maybe it might be okay. Let's go with traffic lights. We've got red light, orange light, green light. Okay.
Yeah. So if we jump straight to white, that means I've solved the problem.
And we're going traffic lights. You jump into green.
I'll work backwards.
Okay.
Stay with me here.
Yeah.
This is my answer, not yours.
Yeah, I want you to go with traffic lights though.
Okay, so we're talking about a red flag being a major problem that could be a deal killer if it's not solved.
Yep.
We'll go amber means there is a possibility of solving it, but I haven't yet solved it, but I might. And green for go, I've solved it. So I've turned a red into a green. I've waited for the lights to change. Well, I haven't waited. I've done something about them. So let's go to that example. Block slopes down from the road. I need to get a stormwater or even a sewer connection to a pipe. Let's say the pipe's over the neighbour's over my back fence in the neighbour's backyard. That'd be amber, because now I've found a solution potentially, but I haven't resolved it. So I go and have a talk to the neighbour and say, look, can I just tap into that pipe? And the neighbour says, yeah, that's okay. Don't mind you doing that. Then now my amber has turned into green, because now I have a solution. So it started off red, potential deal killer, amber, I might have a solution, green, got a solution.
So that's a sort of a great way for you listening to understand that what you might initially think's a no-go could actually be a go. And it's just by following up and doing that due diligence. And the due diligence is to find potential problems and work with them and have potential solutions. It doesn't always mean like flood zone. There's not really a solution for that. But most DD, a lot of DD can have a solution, right?
Yeah, and something like Overland Flow could start off as a red light. So that's not flood. That's where in a heavy rain event, you would have seen it when you get a lot of rain in a very short period of time.
We just had one like half an hour ago.
Yeah, we did, yeah. Well, you have a look at the gutters. The gully traps in the gutters, they start bubbling up because the pipes can't handle that amount of rain in such a short amount of time. And what happens is water starts flowing over land. But it's only temporary, because not long after the storm stops, the rain stops flowing, the pipes start to deal with things again, and it's okay. That's different from a flood, which slightly rises and rises and rises and engulfs land. So overland flow, and plenty of blocks have overland flow, we have to deal with it. So what you can't do, you can't impede the flow. You can't just like build a building right there and then blocks the water and then pushes the water out to the neighbours. But there could be a solution. For instance, we might have to lift our building up a little bit and let the water flow underneath. That's a pretty simple solution. And we've often done that. So red flag again, overland flow, can we solve it? Well, we might be able to with a design solution. Oh, yeah, I've spoken to the civil engineer, had a quick talk to the architect. Yeah, we can design our way through this and solve it. So we've gone red, amber, and now onto green, because they've told me, yes, there is a solution to this.
Ooh, that's the third thing we've come up with. We've gone from red to green. I'm happy.
So that's what we're doing. That's what due diligence is. Like you said, look for problems and then solve them. And some problems you can't solve. And if they remain a red flag, they're what we call a deal killer.
And Bob, which in your experience, and over 40 years of property development, you've had your fair share of due diligence, that's for sure. Or do you remember a time that you thought it was done? This deal there's no way it's going to happen, and then it turned out you took it from red light to green light.
Well, I've turned plenty of red lights into green lights.
But probably the one that you thought that you wouldn't, and you did.
It would have probably come from a rezoning. I'm thinking of a site that I had to change the zoning on in order to do what I wanted to do. And some people were saying, council's not going to do that. And I thought, well, I'm not sure about that. And then so I designed up what I thought was a good proposition, and I took it to the council. I had a pre-lodgement meeting, and they sort of warmed to the idea to the point where I was prepared to put in an application. I actually got my rezoning, and that made a big difference. Well, it made the deal work. It wouldn't have worked without it. And I'd have to admit I was pretty not confident at the beginning, but I thought, well, maybe it's a 30%er. And then I spoke to people that made me think maybe it's a 20%er. And then I thought more about it and spoke to a few more people. I thought, look, it doesn't cost much to go and find out from the source. And it did. And that turned into a good project. So, yeah, that one I started off with not much confidence, but I sort of built up.
Yeah, that's interesting, Bob. So who are likely to be the naysayers?
The naysayers, well, often they're right. Probably ill-informed people would be naysayers.
In your case, when you had that 20% of people, who are they?
Oh, well, I spoke to a town planner that wasn't somebody I knew all that well, but from that area, and he said, no, they're a bit tough on that. I don't think you stand much chance. And I said, well, that's okay. If I back down every time somebody said to me, you probably won't be able to, well, where would I be? Who knows? Not where I am. So, but you're talking about ill-informed information, and there's plenty of that out there. Like if you're going to take advice, take it from an expert. Don't take it from your mate, your brother's cousin, or like I've seen so many people go down dry gullies or get into trouble taking information from ill-informed people.
In fact, and we have that now with like Facebook pages and Facebook groups. Somebody might ask a question and well-meaning people might answer, but that is not always the right answer, because it's somebody who may have experienced something, but it doesn't mean that experience is always that way inclined.
Yeah, and some people, if they're giving advice to somebody else, go negative because they think, well, if they don't do it, if I talk them out of doing it, then they can never get into trouble and come back to me. So that's why you stick to professionals. That's
funny, because when you say that, it reminds me of like accountants and lawyers who can often stop people moving forward financially because it's their butt on the line.
Oh, you see it all the time.
Yeah, we see it.
See it with lawyers.
Yes.
Particularly, they'll advise their client, don't do that joint venture. It could be the best thing their client's ever done in their life, but they think, if I tell them not to do it, then they can't come back if there's something goes wrong. Like it's such a negative thing. But we see it.
But that's the taking advice from people who are slightly ill-informed or don't want to feel like they are responsible, so they just cover their own butt.
Hidden agenda.
Yeah, hidden agenda for sure. So I suppose when it comes to DD, due diligence, who's your favourite consultant to work with? Not as a person, but who do you generally put the most trust in for due diligence?
Well, town planner would be right up there. Because whatever we do, we want an approval. And if we want an approval, it's going to have to conform pretty much with the planning scheme, at least in most cases. And the expert on planning schemes, the person who ultimately puts our approval together and lodges it, that tracks it through council, is the town planner. So they're right up there. But some of those red flags we talked about, things like services, that's a domain of the civil engineer, getting those stormwater connections, legal point of discharge, sewer connections, all those sorts of things are the civil. And sometimes we might be looking for a design solution, which could be our building designer or architect. So they're the three main people. You could say, I don't want to rate them all that much, town planner potentially, followed by the other guys. But they all have their little areas of expertise that we need to rely on.
Interesting. You just mentioned before, I was talking to a town planner, one I hadn't worked with before and didn't know, and they gave you some wrong advice. And I suppose that really points out the importance of having a town planner who really knows what they're doing, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think he was probably playing it a bit safe as well with that comment.
Yeah.
But I wanted an answer, and a yes answer was going to make me quite a bit of money. A no answer was going to make me no money but cost me almost nothing. So I was quite prepared to go ahead with that. And as I moved forward with that, I got a bit more confident.
I remember a mentoring student a couple of years back was caught, a DD, like a red flag on setbacks. It was a no-go, but they just sort of, I'm going to say the word, challenged it or worked with the council, and they actually were lucky enough to, is it a dispensation? They were allowed to cover a little bit. A relaxation, that's the word I was after. They were allowed to use a little bit more of the land. Setbacks are how far you're allowed to build on a site, and how far you can go to each boundary. And it isn't much, but council's pretty tight. Some can be like that. It has to comply, and that's another due diligence. Another area within due diligence as you're moving through a development that, well, actually even before, because he needed to get a certain amount on that site, so the setbacks did matter, and by just working with council and having a good town planner, he was able to get a relaxation on the setbacks. So another red light to green light example of due diligence being moved. But had he not done that, or had the council not been in favour of that, that could have turned into a problem come sale time, because he wouldn't have had what the market wanted, because this meant that he could build what the market wanted. It was a duplex, and then he would have got the sale price that he wanted. And so had he not got that, he may not have got the price that he wanted, and it may not have made the money that he wanted. So it is important. It just shows the importance of due diligence, doesn't it?
Yeah, I had a different but similar one. I did some townhouses, and I wanted to get a rear boundary relaxation. So quite often the setback from the back of your building to your rear fence is 6 metres. And the reason they do that, if you think of the other side of the fence, there's another building. If they're 6 metres, so you've got a 12 metres between buildings minimum. And that's for privacy reasons, so that you're not sort of looking out into each other's, over the back, And with these townhouses, I went for relaxation from 6 metres down to 4.5. The argument was that what was over my fence was a block of old flats, basically, and the side, the back of those flats, which faced me, had no windows.
Right.
Their windows were all front and back, side, not front and back. So the privacy issue really is irrelevant, because they have no windows there, and they were back 6 metres with no windows. I could have been back 6 metres, but I got back to 4.5, and that really helped the design. A bit like the example you're talking about. And the reason was, and I got this from the town planner. He said we could get a relaxation on that, because the 6 and 6 is all about privacy. Privacy is not an issue, therefore it should be irrelevant, and it was. So we got that over the line.
I think that's a great example of for the listener to understand that by due diligence means looking into things further, and by you looking into it further, realising, well, there are no back windows, so it's really not going to be an issue, and then getting a great deal over the line. Was it good? Was it a good deal?
Yeah, look, it worked without that, but it worked even better with that extra area. It gave me a bigger courtyard, and also probably another metre of building, and a little bit bigger courtyard. So that was a really good thing.
Before we carry on through a few more, I have put together a wee checklist for this, Bob, a wee due diligence checklist covering what we talk about in this podcast and more. And if you would like a copy of that, head over to our Instagram account, Property Mastermind, and just comment DD checklist, and somebody will send that through to you. And I might even put red light, orange light, green light, otherwise. But it will be a useful tool for you to. Yeah, just pick up what you need to cover off. Because back to this, I feel like sometimes people see due diligence as a job and a negative thing, but really it's part of the journey to ticking the boxes to making sure things work. And often it's a real win-win situation, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's something that you should enjoy and do, but for very good reason. I mean, what would you rather do? Not buy a property because the due diligence didn't work, or buy a lemon and think of the pain later. It's like I said, like marrying on your first date or getting engaged on your first date or something. Give it maybe do a bit of DD.
We actually talked about that before the podcast. We were in the office and it came up about, we're talking about joint ventures. We've currently got a mentoring student who's got a cracker of a deal and he's got a couple of people interested in being equity partners with him, which is awesome. And he just asked, how much information that you give people, what you tell them straight off. And this is just a bit of a side story, but anyway, and we're saying, well, you just don't give too much away initially. You just need to find out if someone is really interested, and if they are, then have a conversation with them about expectations, etc. Anyway, we're talking about that, and Bob's comment was, "Yeah, you just don't go marrying someone on your first date." That was exactly what you said. I think my sister got engaged after a week, and they're still together like 40 odd years later.
Yeah, well, there you go. It can work, but like you can be lucky on DD and miss something, but like there's too many deal killers there.
But what would be the biggest mistake you've ever seen on DD? Well, I think I can think. You've talked to me about that big company, and you went in, and when you took over, that was a big one.
There's a couple. I knew somebody who bought a site that did suffer from flooding. And they knew that, and they were getting a report. The report didn't come through in time. For them, and they reached a point with their contract where they had to go unconditional, and they did, and the report hadn't come back, but it looked like it might be okay, and it turned out not to be okay. So, and I've met a few people who bought sites that flood, and it's a real issue. But I also worked for a big development company once, and when I came on as the state development manager for Queensland, and prior to that, I had one boss who was the national manager in South Australia. And he'd bought a site for 400 lot subdivision. And so I basically took it over. He'd bought it, but I had to do the development. And immediately I got the civil engineer to look at the stormwater, because we had to, obviously there's quite a big catchment. We had to get the stormwater away. And there were stormwater pipes right up to the site. But I thought, well, that's fine, but that's a lot of stormwater. Wonder if the capacity is okay. Let's say it was a 450 mil pipe. I got a civil engineer to check, and so they work out the size of the area that's got to feed the stormwater in there, basically. It's called a catchment. And he said, well, that 450 won't cope. He said, we need like 2 450s. And so we had to, augment that service by running another 450 mil pipe next to the existing 450 millimetre pipe, a kilometre, until it went into like a 900 millimetre pipe. Cost a lot of money, and that had to be done before we could do anything with that subdivision. Yet it had been bought, and the person who was my boss looked at it, thought, yep, that's okay, we got that pipe there to discharge the stormwater, and that was that. And
never actually looked in to check what the pipe was.
No, he wasn't a real developer.
No.
He was my boss though.
Yes. Oh well.
That can happen.
That can.
But it can happen to the big guys too.
Yes.
I've seen big development companies make dumb mistakes.
Because a big development company just has people doing the work. So if someone's not really doing their job properly, or doesn't understand what they need to do, or perhaps they're new, or perhaps they've got some sort of life situation going on, or they're distracted, or they really want it to happen, or all of those reasons, anything can cause a DD, a debungle, or bungle, or whatever.
Yeah, it's a very dangerous thing for people starting out to get it right. When I say dangerous, it's probably a silly word. It's important to get it right.
So we've covered off a couple of water things and some flooding, and we've talked about site sizes, and we've talked about
setbacks and all sorts of things.
Yeah, and I'm going to bring up one more, and then I'll just let you have a think about what other ones are reasonably common. But even then, it's hard to know, because some areas are prone to mining subsidence and some aren't. It's just you learning about your patch. But we had that situation. We have talked about it previously, probably a year ago, where we walked away from that site, even though we had invested money in it, because our DD was on the people selling it to us. and they were just cowboys. And so we're like, nah, we're not doing this. It was an industrial site. I think you said it's still for sale. I may have asked you recently. And they were just too disorganised, trying to do things cheaply. And that just smelt like, if it walks like a duck and quacks, God, it's going to be a duck. And it was getting like that. And we're like, nah, not going to do it. And that's a form of DD, and that's on the person selling. Like there's all sorts of DD, isn't there?
Yeah, that was a small industrial subdivision of 6 lots that a group of people, friends, relatives, who knows what, came together to do. Never done anything before. But there's a lot of loose ends on that things they should have done that they didn't do, and that whoever started to purchase those lots was going to have to take over some stuff. And they were just so not wanting to spend money, the minimum amount of money. Even their lawyer
was a conveyancer?
As a conveyancer, for goodness sake. And then so you'll remember this, when we put up our contract, which, it was a put and call option. It's a proper commercial contract from a development company like us. And their conveyancer didn't know what to do with it. They'd only ever seen like houses or unit sales or something. It was pretty shocking. And then we got our lawyer trying to educate their lawyer. And there was a few other things. They were supposed to have registered an easement that they hadn't gotten around to because I guess they didn't know and their lawyer didn't. And it was just getting to a point where we thought, no, we can't deal with these people. And we didn't. We pulled out. We'd spent somewhere between $6,000 and $10,000 at that point on certain things to do with the due diligence, and we're happy to walk away. That's cheap. That's a cheap insurance premium.
Yeah.
Compared to what could happen if we kept dealing with those guys.
Yeah, I think it's so important that people know what they're doing, because you've got to know what to look for. And I think that's the thing with due diligence. Between us, and especially you'd have hundreds and hundreds of stories of things that can be negative, and when to walk away. And there are times that you should walk away, and what you can fix, what goes from red light to amber to green light, or red to amber and back to red, or just as a straight red light, or it's a green light, we're good to go. But there often are solutions, and there often are problems, and there often are not solutions, and it could go either way.
It's like that song, The Gambler. Was it know when to something and know when to fold?
Oh, yeah, got to know when to hold them, know when to show them. Yeah.
When to fold them and all that. Yeah, a bit like that.
It is a bit like that. Well, I think we can wind this one up there. If you're interested in that takeaway, as I said, head over to the Property Mastermind Instagram account and just comment due diligence checklist, and you'll be able to download that and have a wee look at some of the things you need to be looking at when it comes to due diligence. It's very hard to say. If you're interested in coming to our workshop, May 1, 2 and 3 on the Gold Coast, we actually got to maximum capacity, but we've actually sourced a bigger room. So the same venue had a bigger room. We've gone to there. So we've gone
to the ballroom.
We've gone to the ballroom. So we can, if you are interested in coming along, reach out to the team or reach out to us, admin at Property Mastermind, or message us, or however it is that you like to make contact, but we would love to have you there. And I think that's it. We can wrap this one up.
It's a wrap.
Oh, for you listening, have a fabulous Easter. And for your property developers, I hope you get yourself a wee Easter present, and it's a site, or you get a contract, or your finance come through, your valuation's great, or whatever part of the journey you're on. I hope it's fabulous. So we'll catch you guys next week. Happy Easter.
Hope I get my lint bunny.
You will, Bob. Okay, bye for now.